me introduce Teri Gegenheimer. Teri's fascination with fireflies goes back as far as her memories can serve her. I think all of ours do, huh? Her summers were spent outside where the nights were illuminated by only the moon, the stars, and the fireflies. I remember that too. Her fascination with fireflies continues to this day, mine too, as she now advocates for their protection. Thank you, Teri. She is a Louisiana master naturalist, a founding member of this organization, and on the board. She's a founding board member of this organization, Wild Ones Pontchartrain Basin, and she's a volunteer ambassador for the Xerces Society for, this is your this is her third year doing it. So welcome, Teri, and thank you for doing it. It's a long time coming because we've been planning it for at least a year. Okay. Here's Teri.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for showing up today. It's always a pleasure to see something that you love so much is shared by so many others. And I hope to bring some education and some enlightenment about the status of fireflies and what we can do to help protect them. Now, I am a volunteer with the Xerces Society, and in case there is anyone here who's not familiar with the Xerces Society, this is a very large science-backed nonprofit that works to protect nature by advocating and protecting invertebrates and their habitat. And we are named after the Xerces blue butterfly, which was the first known insect in the United States to go extinct due to human causes, which was habitat loss. Okay, we have a four-pronged approach to accomplishing this mission. We have quite a bit of scientific research. If anyone's familiar with our materials, we really place a high premium on science-backed data for our conservation efforts, and we have volunteer researchers and paid conservation biologists on staff who work around the clock gathering information and compiling important information that we get out into the public. Okay, we also offer educational and outreach activities such as the one you're attending today. We have a bunch of workshops and publications also online. We offer webinars, Zoom calls on just about everything that you can think of related to insects and their habitat. We also partner with other organizations who are trying to make policy changes and advocate for at-risk insects and their habitats, and so we're very active in that. And also consult on restoration and applied conservation efforts by major organizations, and sometimes even large nurseries. So wherever we can get our foot in the door to get them to improve maybe some of their practices, we certainly do that. Okay, so let's get into fireflies. So fireflies are not flies, lightning bugs are not bugs. Fireflies are in fact beetles. And we know that this is a beetle by its anatomy. They have these, what they're called modified front wings. Those wings are not used for flight. They're actually used for protection. They're usually thick and leathery. But then their hind wings, which are tucked under those wings, they're quite delicate, but they actually use those for flight. So they are quite armored as most beetles are. They have quite a bit of armor for protection. And now, not all beetles have a head shield, but this particular firefly does have a head shield, which is one more area of protection. Okay, fireflies are definitely widespread. There are over 2,600 known species in the world and 179 known species in the US and Canada. And that number continues to grow. We've had 2 new species discovered in the United States in the last 3 years, so data is ongoing. So of the 179 species, they are in every state of the US except for Hawaii. They are on every continent except Antarctica, so they're in every province of Canada except the northernmost, coldest province. So they are seen everywhere, even in the arid West, where you think maybe they wouldn't be seen. They are, in fact, there as well. And if you look at some of these different habitat spots, I wonder if you can see some of the commonalities in these 4 habitats. Anybody want to make a suggestion of what they see that's common? Water, very good. Water is very important in the habitat and life cycle of fireflies. Anything else? Well, we have large tall grasses, we have shrubs, and we have trees. And this is also important, especially for the male firefly species, because they tend to fly more than the female, so they like to get up at varying heights before they take off for flight. So this is another habitat for fireflies. Okay, all fireflies flash. No, not all fireflies flash, but they do all glow. So of the 179 species in the US and Canada, 118 of them do flash as adults, but we do have some that do not. We have the daytime dark firefly, and as it's named, it does fly only in the daytime. It does not fly at night, and it communicates for mating calls through pheromones instead of flashes of light, so they're a little bit different, but they are still a firefly. And we also have a few species of glowworms, and this is a California pink glowworm. The females of the glowworms are typically flightless, but the males are flighted. So they are still in the category of being fireflies. So let's talk a little bit about the glow factor, since not all flash, but all do glow. The fireflies have a 4 life cycle stage, typical to a butterfly: egg, larva, pupae, and adult. And at one point or more than one point of this life cycle, they will all glow. It's one of the distinctive features. So you can see this is a pupa on the left, a larvae on the left, a pupa on the right, and they are glowing. And it is believed that this glow is to let predators know, hey, if you take a bite of me, it's going to be really gross and toxic. And so this is what is believed to be about this glowing aspect. So all fireflies at one or more stages of their life do in fact glow. Okay, now this is a really fascinating part of the feature of the firefly, and that is bioluminescence. So this wonderful light that we enjoy and the dancing and the displays of this light, this is actually a chemical process that takes place in the body of the firefly where they combine luciferin and luciferase with oxygen into their abdomen, and it produces this very bright, cool, low-heat light. And this is a fascination to scientists because it's very difficult to produce a lot of light without also producing a lot of heat. And you see here that nearly 100% of the energy that a firefly uses is emitted as light, but an incandescent bulb, for example, of all the energy it uses, only 10% of it goes into light and the rest of it goes into heat. So they really have a quite amazing scientific phenomena going on, so much so that this has caught the attention of many scientists and has even been researched and cloned to be used in medical imaging services. They've been able to extrapolate some features of the firefly and incorporate that into some of our own healthcare. So fascinating creatures on many levels. So why do they, what is all the flashing about? Well, it's about love. This is just a simple graphic. Almost every firefly has its own flashing pattern. Some you can see in this graphic, it will be a looping indication. Some will flash more green than yellow. Some will flash more yellow than green. And in the center one here, that's kind of an orange rapid fire flash pattern. And this is used for mating. Typically the male will flash out in general, get up in the trees and fly out and flash across the grasses, and the females are typically in the grass. Not always, but typically. And if they get a flash back, then they know they've made a love connection and they'll come closer to see how it'll work out for them. Did I do something? There we go. Okay, so here's a really fact-heavy graphic of the life cycle of the 3 that we just discussed. So you have in the center the flashing fireflies that we're most familiar with. To the right, you have the daytime dark, and to the left, the glowworms. And they each have the same life cycle. They go through all 4 stages, and you can see on this graphic, at some point, these different categories of fireflies will glow, sometimes even at the egg stage, sometimes in the larval stage, and then in the adult, some flash, and the glowworm then does glow. So it's a very fascinating aspect of their life cycle, and you will notice that most of their life cycle is spent underground or at ground level. So a lot of these things that are happening, they're very busy and very important to the firefly. We don't see much, you know. And it's interesting that the larvae stage is perhaps the most important stage, and they can live up to 1 to 2 years in the larval stage, mostly underground. So there's a lot that we still don't know about the larval stage, but it is a very important stage of the firefly. And I want to make sure I don't forget anything. Okay, so they typically like moisture. That's why I wanted to see if you guys picked up on that in the first early slide. So this, ideally, they would be under the ground where it's consistently moist, or under leaf litter where it's also consistently moist. It's very important, the moisture level. And then they pupate. It takes about weeks to months, depending on the species. But then the adult life cycle is only 2 to 4 weeks. So this fascinating expression of light and love, it really only takes place in a very short part of their lives, and the majority of their lives, up to 2 years, is spent as larvae. Okay, so here's an example of several larvae that don't look anything like their adults, do they? They look kind of prehistoric. This is just a few examples, but this is what the larvae tend to look like. They tend to be flattened and rather armored. And they have one main job in this 1 to 2 years of their life cycle, and that their job is to eat, to grow, to not dry out, and to not get eaten. This is what they do. This is an important part. Without this process that takes them 1 to 2 years, we don't get to see the fireflies. Okay, so fireflies, they provide an important service in the ecology of ecosystems, and maybe unseemly to us, but they really are voracious eaters of snails and slugs during this process. It's very important for their life cycle, and it's also a very important service that they provide to our soil biology and to the balance of ecosystems. So while it may seem like a bit gruesome that they just go around chomping up snails and slugs, it's a very important service that they provide. If you were to remove fireflies completely from an ecosystem, then the snails and slugs would become overabundant, and as most gardeners know, they really do like to eat plants. And so while a little bit gnarly, it is a very important part of the balance of nature, this time of eating and growing, not drying out and not getting eaten. Okay, I get asked a couple of questions, and people say, well, are fireflies good for birds? Because migratory birds really depend on insects. And actually, not so much, because fireflies have a very unique compound in them, similar to what toads have, similar to milkweed, and similar to monarch butterflies. It's very bitter, it's sticky, and not palatable at all. So this poor little sparrow here, this may be the first and last time you ever tried to eat a firefly. Because they usually know the ones that they don't try to do that twice, you know what I'm saying? So are they good food for migrating birds? Not so much. And they have a very interesting adult diet. Again, they're only adults for 2 to 4 weeks. They do drink from the nectar of flowers, and they also like maple tree sap. And we have one very unusual female firefly, the Photorus females, and she actually attracts a male to her by blinking, mimicking the blinking pattern of a different species, and then when he comes, she actually eats him. So there's a reason for this, though. I am told that the reason for this is that this particular firefly species does not contain in her being the components that make her distasteful to other predators. And nope, Stu, that's not working. My husband's trying to tell me what to do. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. All right, so she actually does this so that she can then ingest this toxin that she herself does not make. So it's an important, kind of gruesome, but an important thing. Oh, and I will talk about the flowers. Christine, who's not going to be able to be with us here today, I was going to really defer to her presentation because she has a list of all the native flowers and native plants that fireflies use, but I will be going through her slides and going over that just at the end of this presentation. So that information is forthcoming. Okay, another question we get asked, are fireflies pollinators, or are they good pollinators? And again, really not so much. They do really like milkweed. This is a Big Dipper firefly here on the milkweed to the left. They don't really have the same anatomy that bees have that will hang on to pollen. They don't really eat pollen, they're just there for the nectar. But if they go from flower to flower, they can transfer pollen. But are they great pollinators? Are they designed for pollination? Not so much. Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about the status and threats that fireflies do face. And I'll spend a good bit of time on this, and then we can talk about ways that we can mitigate some of those risks. So the Xerces Society has been around since 1971. As I mentioned, we do science-backed research on invertebrates for their conservation. And there's another organization that's new to me, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. This is a large global organization, and they partner with countries, governments, parks, nonprofits to document the status of a species to see if it's at risk, imperiled, or its habitat. And so in 2021, Xerces collaborated with the IUCN to assess the status of fireflies in the US and Canada. And that list can be found at the IUCNredlist.org, but I'm going to go over the details of that now. So this was a great effort, and got a lot of data from this. Okay, so are fireflies in trouble? Well, some are, and some are not. 14% are threatened with extinction as a result of this long-term study. 33% of them appear to be stable, and their habitat appears to be not at risk. But over half, 52% of the 132 firefly species reviewed and researched were simply data deficient. And so data is really important if you're going to go to advocate for fireflies, because everyone says, oh, fireflies are in decline. I don't see fireflies anymore. Well, that's true, but you have to prove it. If you're going to go to a government agency and say, we would like some protection status for this species, we've got to have data to prove that they're in decline. And so for an organization such as the Xerces Society, this is really significant that 52% of the fireflies in US and Canada are just simply data deficient. So citizen science is helping with that, so I hope you'll participate in using iNaturalist and participating in the City Nature Challenge. And really, in fact, anytime that you do encounter fireflies, documenting that is very, very helpful to the cause of being able to advocate for these wonderful creatures. Okay, switching gears a bit now, I want to just introduce you to a couple of common fireflies that you would see in Louisiana and tell you a little bit about them and how easy they would be to identify with just a few traits. The first one is the Big Dipper firefly, and this you can see has a IUC red list of least concern. It's quite stable. It's not endangered at all. It's very common. The Big Dipper firefly is named, as most fireflies are usually named after their flight pattern. It does make sort of a big dip in their flight pattern. And these are found across all of eastern US, all the way from Florida to New York, basically anywhere east of the Mississippi. And they're very, very common. And the reason that we surmise the reason that they are of least concern is they are very adaptable. Unlike some others, they are very adaptable to a variety of environments. You can find them in the suburbs. You can find them in the woods. You can find them in a field. They've even been observed flashing in New York City. So they're quite adaptable, and so they're surviving well because of their adaptability. But this would be one that you would see in your own yard or around the area. They're quite common here. The next one, oops, there we go. There's a couple pictures of what that one looks like. They all look pretty similar, but some of them are distinct. Okay, the next one is the spring treetop flasher. Now this is the one that I have seen in the trees next to my house. They are also very common. They like forests, as the name implies, and they especially like wetland forests. Again, the moisture factor comes into play. They are also, they are seen in early spring, sometimes even before the leaves, the trees leaf out. You could look up into an early spring tree and see this spring treetop flasher, thus their name. They're pretty common here, and again, they are of least concern right now because their habitat and their population appears to be stable. And here, oh, I forgot to mention, this is not my picture, but I observed this on our own property. When they're about to go through to pupate and then go into adulthood, up into the bark of a tree and kind of hang out there for that process. So I actually observed one of these on a pine tree in my yard a couple of years ago. I had no idea what I was looking at because they don't look anything like fireflies. But so, and they'll actually, if there is a population of fireflies near you, and if it's the spring treetop flasher, they will often, I don't know how, they will often visit the same trees to tuck away for this short season of their life. So this is very common, or as common as fireflies are in Louisiana, I guess I should say. And
would you look for that in the late spring? Like, would you look on your tree bark in late spring? Is that when they're becoming adults, or maybe in the winter?
Well, they are, let's see, some of them, I don't know about this one in particular, I would say early spring, because they become adults before the trees leaf out. Now, when I saw this particular species, the trees had already leafed out, so they might have a longer, there's a lot we don't know about how long and how many hatch out. Do they all hatch out at the same time and they all blink for 2 weeks and then they're gone, or do they hatch out in phases? Things that we just don't know. Okay, and this is the third and also fairly common firefly that is found in Louisiana, and this is the candle firefly. And you can see it does look quite a bit different than the other two. It's wider, certainly, the head and the outer wings, and they have a wider yellow margin. So this would be pretty easy to distinguish if you were out and you saw a firefly. This one's really pretty easy to distinguish from others just by its physical presence. But it also has a very unique flash pattern. And they go up into the trees and fly down and make their flash pattern, but they'll do 5 or 6 rapid orangish flashes every 3 to 4 seconds. So they have a unique look for our Louisiana fireflies, and they also have a unique flashing pattern. So hopefully if you ever see this, it'll be very easy for you to actually identify what you're looking at. Now the next two I'm going to talk about because they're vulnerable and endangered. They may be here, they may not, we don't know. This is, oops, sorry. How far did I go? Okay, the cypress firefly. This was first discovered in 2017, and so it was discovered before 2017, but it was documented as a new species in 2017. And this particular firefly is only found in cypress swamps and near the Mississippi River Basin area. So they really like wetlands with cypress trees and cypress swamps. So we certainly have that in Louisiana. And so they have not yet been seen here, but we do have the habitat that may support them. So it's possible, especially with them being remote and kind of out in the swamps, the observations are a little harder to come by. But they have this very distinctive flashing pattern that you could recognize them by. They have 5 short flashes and then 1 long glow. And this one is considered vulnerable because, primarily because the wetlands where it has been found are not protected. They're on some private properties and things like that. And so they're vulnerable because we don't know how to advocate for property that doesn't belong to the state and how we can help them out. So they're vulnerable based on their need for a specific habitat that's not well managed by our powers that be. And this one is called the Loopy 5 Firefly. I've never seen this one, but I sure would like to. It has a great flash pattern. It makes 4 short bursts, and then it makes a glow. But while it's doing all of that, it's jigging and jagging all around, so it kind of looks like a Pollock painting or something. They have a very erratic, crazy pattern, but also pretty distinctive. Now, this one is endangered. And they are only found in certain types of wetlands in southeast United States. When they were first discovered and documented as a new species in 2018, they were only found in 3 known populations. And again, not all of those population areas were protected. They're private property and things like that. So, but since then, in 2020, efforts of biologists and citizen scientists, thank you all, citizen science, they have discovered more. And this particular one has been seen in Tennessee and Georgia. It has not yet been seen in Louisiana, but we do have habitat we believe that is suitable should they in fact be here or choose it. So fireflies do face many threats, and we'll talk about them a little bit and then what we can do to mitigate those threats. First of all, excuse me, habitat degradation and loss is a big issue for a lot of insects, and certainly fireflies are no exception. Light pollution is a really big deal as well, and we'll talk about that and some of the science going on with that. Pesticide use, very frustrating, but that is a big component to the decline, we believe, in fireflies. And also climate change really can have a significant impact because, as I've mentioned, fireflies really need moisture in all stages of their life cycles. And a severe drought could really take out a whole bunch of them. Also, some fireflies only live in coastal areas, and so with potential sea level rise and saltwater intrusion, their fragile habitat could disappear, and they, in fact, then themselves would disappear. So those are some of the challenges that we face. I won't go into the other ones right now, but you be of good cheer, you can help. So we have lots of ways that you can help. Simple ways, too. Okay, so what do firefly habitats need? They need, as we discussed, moisture, food, such as the snails and slugs. They need shelter. They need to be able to stay moist in leaf litter or underground or underneath native vegetation. And they also, for the flighted, flashing fireflies, they do need dark skies. That's really, and we'll talk more about the science about that. So these are their basic critical habitat needs. Oops. Okay, so anyone who's heard me speak, I always manage to bring in the leaves, but for good reason. This is a great habitat for the firefly larvae, and again, they spend 1 to 2 years in the larvae stage. They need protection. They're slightly armored, but they do have predators, mostly fire ants and spiders. So providing a moist, dark environment for them is really critical. And so if you can leave the leaves, you're going to help not only fireflies, but you're going to help a great many insects. And if you absolutely cannot leave your leaves, for some reason, consider gently moving those leaves over and using them in your landscape and in your garden beds to provide that habitat. And don't go to the store and buy bags of wood mulch when you've got free leaves that, will serve your soil biology fantastically as well as the insects. So I encourage you to consider ways that you can leave the leaves. Another thing that is a somewhat simple thing that you can do is try to mow less often. As I mentioned, the females are often on the ground or in lower grasses, not always, but often. And the eggs and larvae are sometimes just beneath the soil line. So if you can mow less often, or if you can raise the height of your mower, that gives those fireflies a better chance of survival in the grasses that you're that you are tending to. Now, some people will say they would even go so far as to leave a certain area wild, and I certainly am a proponent of that. Or in this case, they suggest that you just mow in the fall or winter. I don't know how practical that is, maybe in an HOA situation, but if you can and you're so inclined, that would definitely be a way to help the fireflies. So now, native plants. Hooray for native plants, all my native plant people. So this is a great bit of information. So I hope that you can be encouraged as you maybe look at some of these topics and you see, hey, I've been working these things into my lawn, that you're actually doing something valuable beyond maybe saving native plants. So they really like ground cover, which helps retain soil moisture, which we've touched on. There are several grasses that they really like, even just the lawn grasses. The females will get in the lower grasses, but taller grasses can be used as well for perches and resting places, especially for the male fireflies. They tend to like the higher up, so when they flash across, they can see the females. So that's a preferred habitat for them. And of course, they do like nectar for the adults. And I will have a list from Christine's presentation of the native plants that provide this nectar that fireflies enjoy. So not to be missed on that. Shrubs also provide a diverse structure of varying heights for perching, again, mostly for the males. And trees provide a lot of shelter, and in some places, where they go from pupating to adulthood. But also, I found this interesting, trees can be a barrier to light pollution. So if you have lighting around you that you can't change, a big street light or something, you can plant a tree that fills out in early spring to late fall and block some of that light pollution. So trees are also a good tool to use to help with the light pollution issue. And the trees also provide shelter, which again adds to the moisture level in the ground and allows again for some to pupate and give them display areas for mating. Okay, so this is a simple act that you can do is when you can, try to replicate nature in your landscape. It doesn't have to look wild and crazy. It can look quite attractive. And you can see here, there's a lovely walkway, and we've got plants at different heights. We're talking about the heights again. For the male fireflies, they have a water feature also, which brings in a moisture, but you could include in a shady part of your yard or your landscape, you could put in a shade garden. That would also retain moisture. And if you have an old log, you could tuck that into your shade garden, and that would provide a tremendous habitat for fireflies as well. So using simple things that you could learn by nature itself and incorporating those into your landscape, you can do a lot to help fireflies. Okay, pesticides. There's an overuse of pesticides, what can I say? And it's an ongoing struggle how to approach this. Some are necessary some of the time, but I think they're tremendously overused. So consider non-chemical alternatives if you can. People who fog their yards for mosquitoes don't realize that they're killing every insect. It's just non-discriminate pesticide. And so I would encourage you, if you can, to not use those non-discriminate pesticides. And also try to consider if you have any lawn treatments, if you have someone coming to spray your lawn for fertilizers, that's fine. But you might want to talk to them and find out if they have any pesticides in there. Because believe it or not, some lawn spraying companies are advertising, we'll kill all the bees that are in your ground too, because you don't want to get stung. So they're just laden with pesticides. So if you are a person who uses lawn treatment, I would advise you to, or suggest to you that you consider talking to them about what products they're actually using and if they are harmful. And the other thing about these overuse of pesticides is that it gets in the runoff from that gets into the waterways. And as we've discovered, fireflies really are really in need of moisture and water. So if you could even eliminate one of these things, you'd be doing something good to eliminate or reduce their exposure to these pesticides. Okay, another issue is light pollution. And fireflies need dark nights to communicate and to mate, of those that flash at night, which is the majority of them. So if you can, these are just some simple things that you can do to help reduce light pollution on your own property or at your own home. If you can reduce or eliminate any unnecessary outdoor lighting. If it's unnecessary, why do you have it on, really? If you're of a mind to reduce your light pollution, this is a very simple step that you can take. Limiting lighting to only important areas, such as sidewalks and paths, things that are needed for safety. There's no problem with, being safe, but eliminating unnecessary lighting would be a step in the right direction. Also using motion detectors on any lighting that you do have, so that when you need the lighting, it knows it and it's there, but as soon as you go into your house or you leave your home or whatever you have, the light then goes off. So you're not just willy-nilly putting out light all day and all night, by using a motion detector. You can eliminate some of that light pollution. And another thing that you might want to do, some people do, is to swap out your bright lights for dim red bulbs. And I'm going to just stop and talk for just a moment about the research behind this. There was an entomologist at Harvard who did a really long study of the effects of varying types of light, intensity and hues of light on fireflies. Did it interfere with their communication and their mating process? And yes, in fact, it did. Many of them did. But the one that interfered the least was dim red light. So researchers and field workers who are in conservation work for fireflies have switched all of their nighttime lighting to dim red lighting to have the least amount of interference with the firefly's natural mating cycle. So these are just a few things that you can do. And also the red bulbs are only like $4, so it's not an expensive thing. You might want to consider the next time one bulb goes out, maybe replacing it with a red bulb, if you're so inclined. Okay, another thing that you can do regarding light pollution is you can advocate to reduce light pollution. Dark Sky International is a wonderful organization. They've got lots of great information and advice on how to advocate for local policies to control light pollution. And also even the Audubon Society has a lights out program for migratory birds that's quite significant. And they've been able to save a lot of birds simply by working out their lights out program. So those are just two of the many places that you can look for a lot more information and inspiration. Okay, now we're to citizen science. Yay, citizen science. So I would encourage you to contribute. If you see fireflies and you can make an observation of them, iNaturalist is a great app that's you can have it free on your phone, and you can document what you see, typically with photographs or videos. And while that is really good, it's not the complete picture that we hope to get on filling in the data gaps, and I'll talk to you about an alternative. iNaturalist is wonderful. I use it. I used it in preparation for this presentation, but there is a dedicated website just to firefly monitoring and data gathering, and I'll tell you about that now. So this is the Firefly Atlas. This is not an app, but it is a website. It is free to use. It's free to access and research all the data that they have on existing fireflies. They have a really great checklist that you can print off and just read through it. If you're going to go out, say over this summer, you decide you're going to see if you can monitor any fireflies. They have a complete checklist of the kind of data that we really need that iNaturalist is just not geared to do. It's just not as deep a dive. So it's just different than iNaturalist. And so you can, for example, if you have been recording that you see them XYZ number of days out of the month or something, you can then also, when they stop, you can also make that observation and add that. That's also important information to help us understand their life cycle, when they're mating, when they're flashing. So it's a lot more robust information. If you're really interested in citizen science work for fireflies, I would ask you to check out the website and see if it's something that you might want to consider. It's a very good resource for scientists trying to advocate for the species. And even if you didn't want to do citizen science work, all of the data at this website is free and available. I also used this in preparation for the presentation today. You can go to the website and just under distribution, here it's Connecticut, but I just put in Louisiana and poof, up pops 20 species known to inhabit Louisiana. And it included their habitat, their red list status as far as whether or not they're endangered or threatened, what their flash patterns like, a whole bunch of data. So this is a really good resource for if you want to do a deep dive into what you might be able to see here in Louisiana. Okay, and this is another thing that's relatively new. If you have property that is conducive to fireflies, or you want your property to become conducive to fireflies, you can actually have your property or a park or different locations certified. And that is not done through Xerces, but that is done through firefly.org. They're out of Texas. They're a nonprofit out of Texas, also advocating for fireflies. This is very different from our lovely Louisiana Native Plant Society, where someone actually comes out to your home and observes and certifies your property as a habitat. This is a self-reporting issue because they're based out of Texas, and they can't send people out at this time to every property that's interested in being certified. They do counsel you, you make an application, you make some minimum commitments, things have happened. So this is one option if you're interested. That's one way to kind of beef up your commitment to firefly conservation. And the next one is really something that's very exciting to me personally. This is very new across the US, is that people, communities, parks are establishing and maintaining firefly sanctuaries, not necessarily for ecotourism, but sometimes. And this is there are only 6 in the nation right now. But they have really worked very hard. It takes a lot of community involvement. This is much more involved than the first one, which is, that Firefly Habitat certification. That's more of a commitment on your part to do the things you say you're going to do. This is actually community involvement, and this is a growing trend that people are very interested in and want to get behind. And so Xerces, learning about this in, like I said, it's probably been the last 5 to 10 years at the most, went out and did site visits and did surveys of these successful firefly sanctuaries and wrote up a rather concise but helpful guide for anyone considering that if they would like to do something like a sanctuary in their community or in their park. So I have printed out one copy of that. It's back at the table if you want to flip through it. But also this is, again, free and available to download on Xerces.org. A really fascinating thing that I hope to see a trend that would come to us here locally. So we have resources. Xerces is resource-laden, which is a good thing. So here are 3 books. These are not Xerces books, but the first book is by Lynn Faust, and this is Fireflies, Glowworms, and Lightning Bugs. And this is basically geared towards east of the Mississippi, specific. There's a lot more firefly species that are just east of the Mississippi and then others that are west. It's a great book. I have this book. I've referenced it a lot for this presentation. Lynn Faust is just a lightning bug crazy lady. She travels the world and she's done amazing things. She's even recording oral histories of peoples and their folklore across many countries. Not everyone thinks that fireflies are wonderful. Some cultures think that they're scary and dangerous, and she's recording that kind of history as well. So lovely, lovely book. Silent Sparks I've not read, but this is also a guide to, I'm going to read what it says since I haven't read the book. Silent Sparks introduces readers to the science and wonder of fireflies and includes a brief guide to commonly encountered species in North America. So that's another book. The pamphlet on the far right actually was written by a Xerces conservation biologist, and this is a guide to fireflies of the Southwest, and that's a very specific and different set of species. So, and that is free to download as well. So these are 3 guides that I would recommend. And in the subject of resources, Xerces has quite a few firefly conservation publications, and some of them I had with me today, not all of them. There's probably 10 or more. And they're free, again, to download from xerces.org website, and I hope that you will avail yourself to those. And that said, of course, we have tons of publications that are free, over 400 scientific publications that currently, that Xerces offers on the conservation of invertebrates. So even if it's not fireflies that you're into, you might find something interesting, like bumblebees or monarchs. It just goes on and on. Okay, we also have a really great podcast. It's about 30 minutes. It's usually just picked one topic, one insect, one scientist, two moderators, and they just have a good old fun time talking about the mystery and the fascination of that particular species. It's really short. It's very easy to follow and understand. It's not too science heavy. So I hope you'll consider checking that out. And we have a ton of training webinars, symposiums, and the like on Xerces' YouTube channel. And you can find us, of course, on all social media platforms. I guess they really want you to check out our social media. Okay, so I am here. So firefly conservation is a real team effort. And even if you just do one small thing that you learned about today, you're participating in the effort to conserve fireflies. And I hope that you found something today that you feel is applicable and actionable in your own property. And you could, of course, participate in citizen science. There's a number of ways I hope that I've been able to articulate to you so that you could participate in this great team effort. And with that, I will thank you for listening to this presentation offered by the Xerces Society. I am going to, in just a moment, also give Christine's presentation since she's sick and cannot be here today. But while we're doing that, thank you. It's all really great and important questions. So Christine, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about her. She's from Slidell. Her family has a 5th generation rice farm. She has a degree in horticulture from LSU, where she focused on sustainable agriculture. She's currently working to get her PhD in entomology. And she's also working on getting funding to support firefly surveying in Louisiana. I was really looking forward to hearing more about that. So I will be connecting with her and sharing anything that I learn. She loves the outdoors, working in her garden and going on hikes. So for those of you who don't know, Christine was asked by the town of Lafitte, Louisiana, to help them to plant a firefly habitat. And they got a grant for her to do this, and then she implemented the grant. And I'll go over, her slides are pretty good, and there's just a couple of them. And then within this, she did rally community involvement in this effort, and they do have this at Jean Lafitte now. They put in a firefly habitat, and it's being monitored to see if it's, being inhabited by fireflies. So they're going to continue to monitor it, excuse me. Okay, so this is how Christine got involved in this. The mayor of Lafitte, the then mayor, reached out about supporting fireflies at the Jean Lafitte Park, where Wendy and I met and volunteered 27 years ago. And she worked with several doctors, and she herself is with LSU Ag and is working on her doctorate to survey the site. And they assessed the insect fauna in the park and the leaf litter samples looking for fireflies. They did find a high level of fire ant activity, which is one of the big predators for fireflies. They did not find a tremendous buildup of leaf litter in the areas that they checked, and the grassy fields lacked pollen-producing plants. So this gave them a preliminary criteria of what they could improve upon for fireflies. So they're targeting firefly management. They're transferring native fireflies from other parts of the town to the leaf litter beds that they have established. And she was able to get a seed grant to grow all the native plants that you'll see here shortly, and have those planted now in this habitat as well. So this is a community effort, and this is them putting in this lovely strip along the line of the trees. They used grasslands, and they built up leaf litter beds. They brought in leaves from other parts of Lafitte, and put them in compostable bags, and they've established this berm that they hope will support fireflies in the future. Okay, and this is the stretch of property, and these are the plants that they found that Louisiana fireflies use the most, and this is the list that I promised you. It's swamp milkweed, aquatic milkweed, seaside goldenrod, sugarcane, plumegrass, cardinal flower, coastal mallow, lizardtail, and bulrush. They planted all of these. She got a grant to cover the cost of the seeds, and she actually was able to pay someone to grow these plants for them, and then they were able to plant them. So quite a bit of work went into this. It's very impressive. I'm sorry that she can't be here to brag on herself more because she got a lot accomplished. So if you want to know more about what fireflies need in the way of nectar and plants, firefly.org is where she got most of her information. And this is a little bit hard to read, but if you go to firefly.org and just put in plants for fireflies, you will get all of this information. And they prioritize native plants for sure. So this is the work that she did, and this is some of the science, the research that she used in selecting the plants that they have planted into this habitat. So this is just a QR code to the firefly.org. And so the next steps that she has for this project, they're going to continue to work with the town and volunteer and designate this as a firefly sanctuary if they can prove that they've been successful, which is great. And she's personally looking to do another habitat restoration at Burden Botanical Gardens. And of course, she's very big into encouraging citizen science. And I believe I did mention she's also working on getting funding to support a firefly survey for the state of Louisiana, which I think we'd all be very happy to participate in. So I'm really sorry that Christine's not here to speak for herself and her efforts, but I mean, what a great accomplishment with just a few dedicated people in a community. Yeah, it is great. And with that, I am done. So, thank you so much.